As Nedra said, I'm Sam Garcia. I'm here to moderate the District 1 debate and discussion for reasons beyond my control. We are without the full complement of candidates today, but nevertheless, we're going to press forward as if nothing happened. And so, in thinking about how this was going to go, candidate Cortez, I was thinking of a SWOT analysis, just as it related to this race, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats facing District 1 and McAllen in general. So, you know, I figured we could either do I have about a dozen or so topics to discuss. We could either do that, or we have about 20 minutes, so if you prefer, we could do a staring contest. So it's just up to you.
Well, I'm here at your request to answer your questions and try to portray as much as I can about my knowledge and experience to let the voters of District Number 1 make an informed decision. So I'm going to let you decide. But before we do that, I want to take the opportunity of the privilege of having the microphone, because I am an accountant and I hold the legal profession, the accounting profession in very high esteem. And I see doctors who are better at doctors, architects, engineers, and everybody, so I can be politically correct. But the decedent, Mr. McLeish, was also a CPA. He was the auditor for the county for a long, long time. So he will be terribly missed, because he was an outstanding treasurer for this area. So I had to plug the accountants, right? Thank you, Gracie. Thank you.
Okay. Well, why don't we jump right into it, and I'm just going to sort of fire some stuff out there and get your take on it. First question. Aside from the general issues and concerns that are common to all of McAllen, be it jobs, safety, having a clean city, paved roads, etc., what issues are specifically unique to District 1 that may not necessarily align or harmonize with the rest of the city? And how does the commissioner from District 1, how would they go about bridging that gap?
Sure. Well, I think we have two, well, maybe not unique, but certainly unique at this particular time in District Number 1, and that's the emergence of the Tres Lagos, which is a master plan community. And this is one of the first times the city of McAllen made an agreement with that developer of this size to be able to stimulate the growth in the northern part of McAllen. This is going to be a new challenge, because this is a new experience for the city of McAllen. And how well we do it or how poor we do it are going to decide what the future is going to be. I believe that the Rio Grande Valley is growing at a rate of 3%. So we have a do-nothing plan or do-something plan. We're going to be pretty much grow 3%. The question is, where is this 3% going to grow? So those communities that give the best value for the dollar of a consumer is going to be a higher achiever than the one that doesn't compete. So for us to have Tres Lagos here is going to give us an extra item in the menu to be able to compete with those people that want to find a home, want a place, want to find a business to go into business in an area. And this is a master plan community, which means that they're going to have a mixed use. They're going to have residential, commercial, and all this kind of thing. So right now, that's the only unique part in McAllen that's happening in District Number 1. The other one, of course, is very, very important, and it's going to be debated for a long time, and that's the emergence of a medical school. And where is it going to be located? Also, the growth in the UT Rio Grande Valley. A lot of that growth in the medical area is happening in northeast McAllen, which also happens to be the northern part of District Number 1. How we manage ourselves, how to do that, is going to be very, very important, because, as you know, the more jobs we have, the more economic development we have in a certain area, the more traffic, the more other issues that we're going to be having that we're going to have to manage, properly. There's always also, the debate of are there incentives out there? And if there are incentives, who do we give them to? If you talk to a pioneer family in McAllen that's been here all their lives and says, hey, I started with nothing and I did pretty good, working all my life, just working hard, investing in the city of McAllen, and then some new guy comes in from somewhere and you're giving them incentives. Well, the facts and circumstances today are different than they were 50 or 60 years ago. So you have to take it on a case-by-case basis so you can determine by you giving those incentives, then what value do we expect in return for those incentives. How we manage those things are going to be also important to District Number 1, because I, as a commissioner, ought to have some flexibility of what we're able to offer a prospect that wants to come either do a real estate development, commercial development in McAllen. However, even though it's not necessarily unique only to District Number 1, we have to solve our security problems. We have to solve our illumination problems in our walking trails. We have to solve how we keep our citizens safe. And right now, some of our walking trails are not safe. I mean, people sometimes are afraid to be there because it's not illuminated properly. They don't have a way to contact security. So those are some of the challenges that I see as your next city commissioner for District Number 1 is going to be faced with.
Let me see if I can sort of piggyback on some of that. Give you a hypothetical situation. Wants to come into District 1. Say it's a new development, a multi-story development, and our zoning doesn't quite have the capacity to handle that, so it's going to require city commission approval. Let's say you happen to think it's a good idea, you happen to think it's going to be an asset, but for whatever reason, a loud but vocal and motivated opposition rises up to sort of voice their concerns. Does the city commissioner, how do you balance the difference between sort of responding to the immediate vicinity neighbors' needs and what you believe is actually better for the city, and what's the litmus test there?
Sure, that's a great question. I want to pass it over to Commissioner Barrett over there to answer that question. Come on, Marcus. If all of you know that at one time I was mayor, and the only time I really voted was when my commissioners couldn't agree. When there was a 3-3 vote, then I had to vote to break the tie. And that's not a lot of fun because immediately you have half of the people disagreeing your decision anyway. So, well, here is why this election is so critically important, because those are the tough decisions that we have to make. And it would be improper for me to say, well, you know what? I want to please people, and I'm going to go out there and take a survey and get a straw vote and see what the people want to do. Okay? Well, I have never found a very accurate way of taking a straw vote and finding out if that really is representative of all of the people. And just because I represent District Number 1 doesn't mean that my decisions won't affect the other portion of the city. So at the end of the day, is my judgment, what do I think? So I have to tell you basically the values that I have as to why I want to be in government. Government is not about doing only what people that agree with you want you to do. It's about governing and servicing everyone, even the ones you disagree with. Okay? So here at the end of the day, what are the benefits that we're going to get if we were to approve that project, irregardless if we have citizen opposition? Does that make sense for the long-term future of McAllen? I would take that into consideration, because our future is going to depend on how much money we have in the bank. Because if we don't have money in the bank, then we can't support all the amenities and all the things that we do. We can't keep you safe. We can't stop speeders and do all this kind of stuff if we don't have money in the bank. However, every citizen here has a right. The reason that we were empowered to be a city and be a monopoly, because we are a monopoly. We're the only ones that can provide you with police service, fire protection, streets and drainage. We're the only ones that can do that, is because we wanted to provide core services to all of our community at the lowest and best price. So as I weigh that information, and I weigh if there are other alternatives areas where this development can go, then my decision is going to be based on a fact-specific issue. I cannot sit here and tell you and second-guess myself what I'm going to do in a hypothetical situation. I have to wait until it actually happens. But that would be the process that I would use to help me make the right decision.
All right. Thank you. For better or worse, McAllen has a reputation for being a difficult city to do business in. It seems that the general consensus out there are that regulations are at times excessively onerous, that city officials can sometimes be more of a hindrance than a help in bringing new developments to the city. How can an elected official have any effect on that portion of the city, and what is your sort of take on that?
I don't know how many hours did you all spend coming up with these questions. Those are those are good questions. It's a two-side analysis. The first side of the analysis is, what is the regulation? Then the second side of the analysis, how do we enforce it? So sometimes we have a problem that is not necessarily the problem of the regulation itself, because it could be a good regulation. It's the way we're enforcing it. Maybe we don't have properly trained people. Maybe we don't have enough people that really understand how to enforce that regulation. I have experience in that. My firm built an office, and we had already finished putting all of our bathroom facilities and whatever, and an inspector came over here and says, well, no, you have to have this automatic flushers, okay, and all of the things or whatever. So if somebody misinterprets some of these regulations, then some people feel that this is abusive and McAllen is overregulated or whatever, but the problem is really in our people. So before I would start looking at our regulations, I want to make sure that all our employees are properly trained to properly regulate the regulations. Then one of the things that I want to do, and I want to suggest to Mayor Darling, okay, and maybe because the way that we get something in the agenda is either the mayor puts it in the agenda or two commissioners put it in the agenda. I'd rather go to Mayor Darling. He is our mayor, and he's our leader. So I would like to recommend to him that we take a look at all of our regulations. You know, the state of Texas, not too many years ago, they had the Sunset Commission to really look at all the laws of the state of Texas to see if they were working for the intended purpose. Okay, I think McAllen needs to do that because, quite honestly, I do believe McAllen has regulations that had good intentions but are no longer needed, or we shouldn't have to be able to stimulate and be a catalyst to additional creation of jobs and businesses in our community.
Thank you. Speaking of Mayor Darling, Mayor Darling is a big proponent of regionalization and talks about that, and I know that that's a topic that's sort of an undercurrent to local city politics as of late. I want to ask a specific question as it relates to regionalization. Would you support efforts that would see the city of McAllen divest their interest in the bridges if those interests were to go into a joint Hidalgo County bridge consortium that would be run as a sort of unified entity? Would you support that?
Well, again, I need to have more evidence. Well, and we do have two bridges. We have the Hidalgo Bridge and we have the Alciduas Bridge, which belong to the city of McAllen. If I were to sell them for its proper value, then the citizens of McAllen are going to receive value for the asset that it had. Okay? And the value of an asset, by definition, is what are the future benefits that the owner of that asset is going to have adjusted for risk. So if the city of McAllen is going to get proper value, we were to sell it to a region, then if it helps the region, I wouldn't have a problem because we compensated the citizens of McAllen properly for the value that it had. But if we're just going to simply transfer it and transfer our future revenues to someone else, then that's not only a no, that's a blank, blank no.
About another hypothetical. No, something I like to call sort of like a magic wand question. If you had a magic wand and you could, snap your fingers and make it happen, what piece of major infrastructure, capital improvement, do you think the city of McAllen needs, be it in District 1 or be it citywide?
The way that we finance everything in McAllen is we receive revenues, and the revenues we receive come from sales taxes, which in essence, any business in McAllen that generates a sales tax is our partner. We also tax people that own real estate. We receive profits from the bridge, and then we receive hotel occupancy. Those are basically the four core revenues that we have. And as what is happening here is McAllen used to have a 55% market share of all of the sales that occurred in Hidalgo County were occurring in McAllen. We have now gone to 45%. You say, God, that's bad. Well, it's really not bad. It's good because our neighbors are doing better. If you look at the sales that our neighbors are having, they're also doing better. So some of the sales that we lost went back to Edinburgh. Edinburgh is really not growing. They're just getting back what they lost to McAllen. So we have to be very careful as we move forward that we allow the science of business to dictate a lot of our decisions. And the science of business is that you have consumers that earn money and consume. So as you study the habits of a consumer, what you find is there's something that's called a leakage analysis. And that analysis says, look, you should be selling more of this in your area, and you're not, which means that you're someone else in San Antonio or Brownsville or Houston are getting sales that you should get. So as I look at the leakage of McAllen, one of the leakages that we have in McAllen not too many years ago, there was only two. And I think I've said this before. And the first leakage was furniture. Believe it or not, people in McAllen were not buying as much furniture as they should. They were buying it somewhere else. And number two, construction materials. Construction materials, to me, it was pretty safe to say because most of them were in the outskirts of McAllen. What I am seeing is that when people have leisure time and money to pay on leisure time, they're not doing it too much in McAllen because their only thing that they can do in McAllen is really go dine because there's not too many venues for families to go out and do it. So I think the infrastructure that would be important to McAllen and to really solidify McAllen as the city of destination is to have wholesome recreation alternatives for families.
Would you support a policy in McAllen of using sort of passive incentives, tax reimbursements, for example, tax abatements that encourage the private sector to build upward instead of outward as sort of a blanket policy that says this is what McAllen stands for and we would like to be a taller, more dense, compact city? Would you support and even if you didn't understand 100% how it was going to affect everything, would you still support it?
Again, these questions are hypothetical, and I'm going to tell you that I believe that's going to be the next stage in McAllen's development is we're going to have to go up. I was not necessarily for expanding too much our territorial jurisdictions because it's expensive to spread out at single levels because you need more fire protection, more street, more police, more of everything, and the income that you get from a household, the bond people are going to tell you an average household of $100,000 pays $420 to the city of McAllen because our tax rate is 42. So for $420, we have to provide you fire protection, streets, lights, police, or whatever. You don't have to be a master's degree guy from A&M to know that that's not a lot of money to provide all those services. So to me, I think that I would be more interested in knowing what does the demand side of the equation say? Is there a demand for that? And if there is, then how can we be the first to do it? And how can we, catalyze that development here? So to me, I would have to look for the statistics on that. I believe that whoever does a high-rise luxury condo in McAllen or starts going up is going to be very successful because I think there's a demand for that.
I could recommend a decent architect. Candidate Cortez, I thank you for your time. And before we're done, I just do want to ask one final question that's very near and dear to my heart. As I was doing sort of the research for the questions today, Statistically speaking, per capita, District 1 is second only to District 4 in terms of beards per capita. So what would you do to diminish the discrimination that
I was sending back to the McAllen Independent School District for more education.